Eliza Orzeszkowa, The Argonauts. Thanks to your subscription, the channel can grow. Chapter 5. Kranitsky ascended a carpeted stairway, which was adorned with lamps and statues. His fur coat with a costly collar was overworn somewhat. His hat was shining, his step free, and there was a cheerful smile under his mustaches, which were turned up at the ends carefully. The stairway was almost a street. People were passing up and down on it, and whenever you met them and caught their eyes, you noted freedom, self-confidence, elegance. You saw the 11th commandment of God, which Moses, only through some inconceivable forgetfulness, neglected to add to the Decalogue. Entering the antechamber, he threw the servant his fur, from which issued the odor of excellent perfumes. From the pocket of his coat peeped the edge of a handkerchief. He arranged before a mirror his hair, thick yet above his forehead, but showing from behind a small, circular bald spot. Hat in hand, and with a springy, self-confident tread, he entered the drawing-room. Only 2 red spots above his brow interrupted the whiteness of his forehead, which was slightly wrinkled. His eyes, usually gleaming or affable, were mist-covered. In a door opposite that by which Kranitsky entered stood Irene, under a crimson drapery of curtains, with an open book in her hand. Kranitsky, with that light swaying of the body, with which elegants are accustomed to approach ladies, approached Irene and, bending easily before her, kissed her hand. "May one enter?" inquired he, indicating with his eyes the door of an adjoining chamber. "I beg you to enter. Mamma is in her study." The inclination of head and sound of Irene's voice contained only that measure of cordiality which was absolutely demanded by politeness, but that was her way always and with every one. Cold radiated from her, and such indifference that it was sometimes a contemptuous disregard for people and things. But when Kranitsky, hat in hand, passed 2 drawing-rooms, she followed him with her glance, in which, besides disquiet, there was a kindly feeling, and more, perhaps, a feeling of pity. She was accustomed from childhood to see him. He was gentle, as ready as a slave to render service, as ready as a friend to oblige. He noted the wants not only of the lady of the house, but of each of her children. He had the subdued manner and pliancy of people who do not feel that they merit what they have, and are ever trembling lest they lose it. He had, besides, the gift of reading beautifully in various languages. For a number of years Irene could not remember pleasanter evenings than those which, free from society demands, she had passed in her mother's study when Kranitsky was present. Sometimes Kara and her governess took part in these domestic gatherings. Sometimes also, though more and more rarely, they were enlivened by the presence of Marian, who, in the intervals of reading, chaffed with his sister and mother, and argued with Kranitsky about various tendencies in taste and literature. Most frequently, however, Kara was occupied with lessons, and Marian by society, and only she and Malvina, with artistic work in hand, listened in silence and thoughtfully to that resonant, manly voice, which rendered masterpieces of thought and poetry with perfect appreciation and feeling. During such evenings, Irene was seized at moments by a dream of certain grand solitudes, pure, surrounded by cordial warmth, remote from the uproar of streets, the rustle of silks, the noise of vain words, whose emptiness and falsehood she had measured. But straightway she said to herself, "Painted pots, ideals, these have no existence." And she made a gesture, as if driving from above her head a beautiful butterfly, feeling convinced that that butterfly was merely a phantom. Today, from minute observation, the conjecture rose in her that something uncommon had happened, and that something more must happen also. She was colder and more formal than ever, with a burning spark of fear in the depth of her blue, clear eyes. Her dress was of cloth, closely fitting, somewhat masculine in the cut of the waist, and on the top of her head was a Japanese knot of fiery hair, pierced by a pin with steel lustres. In her hand was an open book, and she walked along slowly through the 2 spacious drawing-rooms. She did not raise her eyes from the book, though she did not turn a page in it. At one door she turned immediately, at the other, which was closed, she stopped for a few seconds when she caught the sound of conversation, carried on beyond the door, in low voices, by 2 people. She did not wish to hear that conversation. Oh, she did not! How long ago was it since she had striven to be deaf as well as blind, and frequently so deal that no glance of the eye, no movement of the face might betray that she had sight or hearing. But now, as often as a louder sound struck her ears from beyond the closed door, she stood immovable, and her eyelids quivered like leaves stirred by wind. For a long time it had seemed to her that something terrible might happen in that house some day, something to which she would not be able to remain deaf and blind. Might it not happen just that day? With slow, even step along the gleaming floor, between purple, azure, and various shades of white which filled the drawing rooms, she walked, in her closely fitting dress, from one door to the other, her eyes fixed on the book, her manner colder, more formal than ever, her delicate, motionless face, above which the long pin threw out metallic gleams. Suddenly an outburst of silver laughter was heard at another door. Till that moment 2 female voices had been heard, speaking English, beyond this door, now thrown open with a rattle. Golden strips of light, cast in by the winter sun, were lying on the purple and white of the drawing-room. Into this drawing-room rushed a strange pair. A maiden of 15, in a bright dress, golden-haired, rosy and tall, bent low. She held by the forepaws a little ash-colored dog, and with him went waltzing around the furniture of the room, humming as she moved the fashionable "La la 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 la." A pair of small feet in elegant slippers, and a pair of shaggy beast paws whirled over the gleaming inlaid floor, around long chairs, tables, columns holding vases. Swiftly, swiftly did she go till she met Irene at the door of the next drawing-room. Kara raised the little dog from the floor, straightened herself. Her eyes met the strange glance of her sister. Irene blinked repeatedly, as if some disagreeable light had struck her eyes. "Always so gladsome, Kara." "Aye," cried the girl. "Oh, so, Puffy made me laugh, and the sun shines so nicely. The day is beautiful, isn't it, Ira? Have you noticed how diamond sparks glitter on the snow? The trees are all covered with frost. Let us go with Miss Mary for a walk. I will take Puffy, but I will cover him with that blanket which I finished embroidering yesterday. Is Mamma well?" "Why do you ask about Mamma?" "Because when I gave her good morning, I thought that she was ill. She was so pale, pale. I asked her, but she said, 'Oh, it is nothing. I am well.' Still it seems to me." "Let nothing seem to you." Irene interrupted her almost angrily. "The surmises of children like you have no sense in them most of the time. Where are you going?" "To Father." She pointed with her eyes to her mother's rooms. "Is that man there?" It was not to be discovered why she spoke in lowered tones, but Irene's voice sounded almost harsh when she inquired, "What man?" "Pan Kranitsky." Now Kara's red small lips, in the twinkle of an eye, formed a crooked line in spite of her. Then, bending toward her sister, she said, almost in a whisper, "Tell me, Ira, but tell the truth. Do you like that man, Kranitsky?" Irene laughed aloud freely, almost as she had never laughed. "Ridiculous! Ah, what an amusing baby you are! Why should I not like him?" "He is our old and good acquaintance." And returning to her usual formality, she added, "Besides, you know that I do not like anyone very much." "Not me?" asked Kara, fondly touching with her red lips the pale cheeks of her sister. "You, a little. But go away. You hinder my reading." "I will go. Come, Puffy, come!" And with the dog on her arm she went off, but she stopped at the door, and turning to Irene, she bent forward a little and said, in a low voice, "But I do not like him. I do not know why this is. First I liked him, but for some time I cannot endure him. I do not know myself why." At the last words she turned away, capriciously, and went on. "She does not know," whispered Irene over her book. "That is why she dances with the dog. What happiness in Arcadian life!" The little one, going on, began to hum again, but near the door of her father's study she grew silent and stopped. The sound of a number of men's voices in conversation reached her. She dropped her hand and whispered, "Father has visitors. What shall we do now, Puffy? How shall we go in there?" After a moment's thought and hesitation, she stepped in very quietly under the drapery of the portiere, and in the twinkle of an eye was sitting on a small, low stool, which stood behind a tall case of shelves filled with books, which, placed near the door, formed with 2 walls a narrow, triangular space. That was an excellent corner, a real asylum which she could reach unobserved, and which she had selected for herself earlier. The books on the shelves hid her perfectly, but left small cracks through which she could see everyone. Whenever there were guests with her father, she entered directly from the door. With one silent little step she pushed in. waited longer than the guests, and when they were gone she could talk with her father. At the round table, which was covered with books, maps, and pamphlets, in broad armchairs were sitting, hat in hand, men of various statures and ages. They had not come on business, but to make calls of longer or shorter duration. Some were giving place to others who came unceasingly, or rather flowed in as wave follows wave. Some went, others came. The pressing of hands, bows more or less profound, polite and choice phrases, conversation, interrupted and begun again, conversation touching important and serious questions of European politics, local questions of the higher order, and problems of society, especially financial and economic. Darvid's voice, low but metallic, filled the study. It was heard by all with an attention almost religious. In general, Darvid seemed to ride over that ever-changing throng of men, by his word, by his gestures, by his eyes, with their cold and penetrating gleam from behind the glasses of his binnacle. He was radiant with a certain kind of power which made him what he was, and the world yielded to the charm of this power, for it created wealth, that object of most universal and passionate desire. He himself felt all its might at that moment. When at the door of the study were heard, announced by the servant, names famous because they were ancient, others known for high office, or for the reputation which science and mental gifts confer, he experienced a feeling like that which a cat must feel when stroked along the back. He felt the hand of fate stroking him, and the delight caused by this became very pleasing. He was eloquent, he was gleaming with self-confidence, judgment, and ease of utterance. Not the least pride was to be observed in him, only the gleam of glory issuing from his smooth forehead, and the mysterious sensation of apotheosis, which pushed an invisible pedestal under the man, and made him seem loftier than he was in reality. At a certain moment a number of men entered. They seemed almost sunk in humility, and at the same time filled with solemnity. That was a delegation from a well-known philanthropic society in the city. They had come to Darvid with a request to take part in their work by a money contribution and by personal assistance. He began by the gift of a considerable sum, but refused personal assistance. He had not the time, he said, but even had he time, he was opposed in principle to all philanthropic activity. Philanthropy gives a beautiful witness touching those who engage in it, but it cannot prevent the misfortunes which torture the race. Nay, it strengthens them needlessly, and offers premiums to sloth and incompetence. Only exertion of all forces in untiring and iron labor can save mankind from the cancer of poverty which tortures it. Were there no help behind any man's shoulders, no hands would drop down unoccupied, each man would exercise his own strength, and misery would vanish from this earth of ours. Among those present, a guarded and immensely polite opposition rose, however. The weak, the cripples, lonely old men and children? Philanthropy, answered Darvid, cannot stop the existence of these social castaways. It merely continues and establishes them. But they have hungry stomachs, sad souls and hearts, like our own. What is to be done? Inquired Darvid, with outspread palms which indicated regret. There must be victors and vanquished in the world, and the sooner the latter are swept from existence, the better for them and for mankind. A look of displeasure was evident on the faces of some, but they were silent. The oldest man rose, and smiling most agreeably, ended the argument. But if philanthropy had many patrons like you, its activity would correct the injustice of fate very frequently. Let us not call fate unjust, retorted Darvid with a smile, because it favors strength and crushes incompetence. On the contrary, its action is beneficent, for it strengthens all that is worthy of life, and destroys that which is useless. It has been just to you, and in this case we all owe it gratitude, concluded the oldest man in the delegation, ending the dispute hurriedly. Holding, meanwhile, Darvid's hand in his two palms, he shook it with a cordial pressure, and his gray head and face, furrowed with wrinkles, were bent in a profound obeisance. For those whom his honest heart pitied, he carried a gift so considerable that, in spite of words which were not to his mind, the homage and gratitude which he gave came from perfect sincerity. At last Darvid's study was deserted, and on his lips was fixed a smile which resembled a pricking pin. Why had he poured out such a great handful of money for an object which to him was indifferent, the need of which he did not recognize? Why? Habit, relations, public opinion, expressed orally and by the printed word. A comedy! Misery! He frowned. The wrinkles between his brows were growing when he heard a slight rustle behind. He looked around and exclaimed, "Kara! How did you come in? Ah! You were sitting in the corner behind the books. Only a reed such as you are could squeeze in through that cranny. What is your wish, my little daughter?" He smiled at his daughter, though his glance turned to the clock standing in the corner of the room. But Kara, with seriousness on her rosy face, stretched out to him the little dog, which had just wakened and was still sleepy. "First of all, I beg father to stroke Puffy. Puffy is pretty, and he is good. Stroke him just once, father." Darvid drew his palm a number of times, absent-mindedly, over the back of the dog. "I have stroked him, but now if you have nothing else to say—" "I have no time," added she, finishing her father's sentence. She laughed, and dropping Puff on the armchair, she caught her father in both her arms. "I will not let you go," cried she. "Father must give me a quarter of an hour, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes. I will speak quickly, quickly. If I have nothing more to say. I have piles of things to say. I was sitting in the corner looking and listening, and I don't understand, father, why so many men come to you. When one looks at it all from a corner, it is so funny. They come in and bow." Here she ran to the door and began with motions and gestures to enact that of which she was talking. Puff sprang after his mistress, and, stopping in the middle of the room, did not take his eyes from her. They come in, they bow, they press your hand, father, they sit down, they listen. She sat on the chair in the posture of a man, and gave her delicate features an expression of profound attention. Puff fixed his eyes on her and began to bark. Or in this way. She changed her expression from attention to gaping. Next she sprang up from the chair. Puff sprang up too, and caught the end of her skirt in his little teeth. They rise, they bow again, they all say the same things. "I have the honor. I shall have the honor. I wish to have the honor." She bowed man-fashion, knocking her heels together, and then pushing apart her little slippered feet, and Puff tugged at the edge of her dress, sprang away, barked repeatedly, and seized her dress in his teeth again. "Puffy, don't hinder me. Puffy, go away. Some go out, others come. Again, I have the honor. I wish to have the honor. Puffy, go away. They press your hand, father. Oh, I have tired myself." Her breath had become hurried from quick motions and rapid speaking. A bright flush covered her face. She coughed and coughed again. She seized her father's arms. "Do not run away, father. I have much to tell you. I will talk quickly." Darvid had been standing in the middle of the room, and following her quick movements with his eyes, at first with an indulgent, and then with a more gladsome smile. That child was beaming with exuberant life, with wit also, which had the power to penetrate things and people, a most delicate sensitiveness, which made her an instrument of many strings, and these never ceased quivering. She reminded him marvelously of Malvina in her youth. When she began to cough, he caught her and said, "Do not hurry so, do not speak so much, talk less, sit down here." "I have no time, father, to talk slowly, I cannot sit down, for you will run away that moment. I must hold you and hurry. I want you to tell me why so many men come to you, and why you go to their houses. Do you love them? Do they love you? Is it agreeable and pleasant for you in their company? What do they want? What comes of these visits, pleasantness or profit? And whose profit, theirs or yours? Or the profit of someone else, perhaps? What is all this for? Do not these visits remind you of the theater? Though I have never been in the theater. Here, as in the theater, every man plays some part, pretends, puts on a face, does he not? Why does he do so? Do you like this, father? I beg you to tell, but only tell me everything, everything. For, father, I want you to be my master, my light. You are so wise, so respected, so great. Enthusiasm put sparks into her dark eyeballs, which were turned up to her father's face. Darvid stroked her pale golden hair. "My dear child," said he, "my little one." After a while he added, "Are you a wild girl from Australia or Africa to ask me such questions? You have seen visits from childhood. Have you not seen your mother receiving many visitors also?" "Yes, yes, father. But Mamma amuses herself with them, and is taking Ira into society. But what are visits to you? Are you amusing yourself also?" "How amuse?" laughed Darvid. "They annoy me oftenest of all, though an odd time they give me pleasure." "What pleasure?" You do not understand this yet. Relations, position in the world, significance. What do you want of significance, Father? Why do you wish for a high position in society? What profit does significance give? Does it give happiness? See, Father, I know one little history. Miss Mary's father, an English clergyman, has a parish in a poor, faraway corner where there are no people of significance and no rich men, but there are many poor and ignorant people there, and he has significance only among those poor people. That is, he has no significance whatever. Still, he is so happy, and all those people are so happy. They love one another and live together. It is so warm and bright in that pastor's house, there among the old trees. Miss Mary came away from there to get a little money for her youngest sister, whom she loves dearly. She lives pleasantly here, but she yearns for her family, and has told me so much of them. And some time, Father, I will beg you to let me go with Miss Mary to England, to that poor country parish, and see that great, warm, bright happiness which exists in it. Tears glittered like diamonds in her gleaming eyes, and Darvid, with his arm around her slender waist, stood silent in deep meditation. That child, by her questions, had let his thoughts down, as if by a string, to the bottom of things at which he had never looked before. He had had no time. He might tell her that high significance in the world tickles vanity, flatters pride, helps, frequently, to carry business to a profitable conclusion, that is, to pecuniary profit. He might confess to himself also that English clergyman, in his quiet parsonage, under his ancient trees, seemed to him a very happy man all at once in that moment. After a while he said, "It must be so. Happiness and unhappiness are one thing for poor people, and another for the rich." He looked at the clock. "But now, I have no time," laughed Kara. "No, no, Father, 2 minutes more, a minute more. I will ask about something else." "You will ask more," exclaimed he, with such a laugh as he had hardly ever given. "Yes, yes, something even more important than the last of 4. I am troubled about it. It pains me so." She changed from foot to foot, and embraced her father with all her strength, as if fearing that he might run away. Did father mean really to say that one should not uphold the poor, the hungry, the sorrowful, the sad, nor comfort them, that it is only necessary to leave them so that they may die as soon as possible? When father said that I felt sick in some way. Mamma and Ira this long time support 2 old men, so gray and nice, whom Miss Mary and I visit often. Do Mamma and Ira do badly? Should we let them die as soon as possible from hunger? Brr! It is terrible! Does father think so really, or did he only say what he did to get rid of those gentlemen the more quickly? Father, you are good, the best, a dear golden father. Do you really believe what you said, or was it to get rid of those men? I beg you to answer me, I beg you. Remember to subscribe.